Destined to win.
We gotta turn it around.
Welcome to Destined to Win. Psalm 23 holds a special place in my heart and can arguably be called the greatest psalm. King David penned this psalm after a lifetime of highs and lows, victories and betrayals. So if you're hurting, struggling, or needing guidance in your life and reassurance, you'll want to hang in there with me as I share some encouragement straight out of Psalm 23.
I don't know if you all know this about me, but I love cookies. I mean, I'm like a cookie monster. I don't eat just one cookie. I have to like either abstain or I'm done. Because as soon as I eat one, anybody else have this problem? Like, it's like as soon as you eat one, you just, I'm better off just not touching them, right? But I could do like a dozen, 2 dozen. Seriously, no joke. 2 dozen would be no problem for me. And I'm not talking about them little chintzy ones either. You know, you just spoon them on. You know, somebody who is real cheap with the dough is making them. I'm talking about the big ones too. Anyway, there's this insane cookie place in New York City called Insomnia Cookies. Anybody ever heard of Insomnia Cookies? And they deliver, their promise is, they deliver warm, gooey, chewy, little crispy on the outside, gooey on the inside, nice chocolate chip cookies, 7 days a week till 3 a.m. in the morning. I mean, I guess that's Insomnia Cookies, you know? And I thought about this. I thought, who came up with that business plan? I stay up till 3 in the morning, you know, got to staff it, got to make cookies, got to be fresh. If you would ask me, is that a good business plan? I'd tell you that's a horrible business plan. But they've tapped into something that is a pandemic in our society even before there was a pandemic. And that's that people can't fall asleep. 70 million people plus suffer from insomnia every year. It is actually credited with 38,000 deaths. It costs the U.S. $70 billion worth of productivity. 64% of teenagers suffer from it. The most severe cases occur in those between the ages of 30 and 40, and about 50% of all senior citizens over the age of 65 battle with it. And so Insomnia Cookies built a multi-million-dollar business on a multi-generational problem, and that is we as people can't find rest. And the rest that escapes us is not just for our bodies, but it's something that's going on deeper, and more importantly, it's a symptom of what is happening in our souls because we are overburdened with worry. We're overburdened with anxiety, fearfulness, fretfulness, uncertainty, and busyness. We get the what ifs. Well, what if that happens? And how am I going to go deal with this? This one's mad at me, or I'm mad at that one. And my job is full of pressure. My boss is nagging me to get the deadlines due. My house needs to be cleaned, and my lawn needs to be cut, and the kids have to go for their physicals, and the oil on the car needs to be changed. The bills are due. There's too much month at the end of the money. My spouse and I are at odds. My teenager is troubled. How am I going to cope with all this? And still have time to get everything else done in a 24-hour day. And so we lie awake at night because our souls are troubled. Our mind is racing 1,000,000 miles a minute. As a result, we can't rest. Interestingly enough, most animals know how to rest. Dogs doze and bears hibernate. Cats invented the cat nap. Sloths slumber all day long. But sheep, they naturally don't sleep. They need a shepherd in order to find rest. And we're going to see so do we. I, for one, find it humorous and actually providential that one of the old myths of how to fall asleep is to count sheep. Meanwhile, these animals can't even sleep. In order for sheep to rest or to lie down, they must be free from 4 things. Otherwise, they'll never rest. They must be free from fear, conflict, parasites, and hunger. Otherwise, they'll remain skittish on their feet indefinitely. It's only when sheep feel safe from predators, free from inter-herd conflict, free from flies and bugs that bother them, and have a full belly, and their thirst is quenched, that sheep will lie down and rest. Otherwise, they will stay standing the entire time and remain skittish. The only way for them to be free of these 4 things, predators, conflict, parasites, and hunger, is for their shepherd to see to it. Sheep are totally dependent upon the shepherd in order to find rest. Literally, the shepherd, due to his constant care for the sheep, makes them. Not as in forces them, not as in gets them to do something against their will, but takes care of them so well that they feel so safe and they feel so secure that then and only then will they lie down and rest. David is saying, based on God's constant care for him, in the face of all four of these things which David experienced, predators, conflict, parasites, and hunger, that God and God alone is responsible for my blessed rest. And today I want you to know that God and God alone can give you that rest. Otherwise, you will stay up, staring at the ceiling, counting sheep, and brag about how you can't sleep but still function. I just want y'all to know you function better when you sleep. And I've gone through all this in my own life. There were periods of time where I couldn't rest. And then all of a sudden I just said, God, I got to be able to sleep. This is just crazy. I got to be able to tune it off. I got to be able to turn the brain off. And I started standing on promises in the Bible. It says he gives his beloved rest. And I sleep like a baby every single night. It doesn't matter what's really going on in my life anymore. And I've learned how to sleep in strenuous situations and circumstances because, and I'm going to get into this and kind of flesh it out, because when you understand that the shepherd takes good care of you, you can rest even in the middle of the worst storms of life. What did Jesus do on the boat? Slept. Everybody else was freaking out. Jesus was sleeping. I want to give you 4 keys for blessed rest, or begin to give you 4 keys. I'll only give you one of them today. The first key is for blessed rest, you have to tap into the presence of the shepherd. And the first key that has to do with God's presence is blessed rest comes when we realize his presence is with us. First, sheep must be free from fear of predators. Sheep are timid. They're easily panicked. Even a stray jackrabbit can cause a stampede of sheep. The slightest suspicion of danger will cause sheep that had just laid down to get up and get ready to run for their lives as though something is going to kill them. We're a lot like sheep. Our instincts are to panic. Our instincts are to protect our lives right away, even if it means throwing your husband to the wolves and locking the door behind him. Sheep, though, have reason to be skittish because, as we saw last week, they're virtually defenseless. They have no fangs, no claws, no sharp teeth. They can't run fast. They're a little like us. We have weapons, intellect, brute strength, relationships, financial resources. All those things can be weapons. But the truth of the matter is none of those weapons that we have, just like none of the things that a sheep possesses, actually protect us from what hurts us most. A broken heart, financial collapse, divorce, loss of a loved one. None of the weapons that we have really protect us from those things. There's only one place that we can find comfort for our souls, rest for our souls from all those kind of things. Because fear is no joke. When we are afraid like sheep, you know, sheep, pregnant sheep, they're called ewes. When they have lambs or are pregnant with lambs, and they get afraid if they start to run, they will abort the lamb. And how many of our destinies are aborted because some situation grabs us, grips us, and we become afraid? Fear is no joke. Most of us would agree that the door to David's destiny was opened when he faced one of the scariest things in all the world, a giant named Goliath. That was the springboard from his place, from the pasture land to the palace. That was the door of opportunity, but it was cast, it was masked in a shadow of fear by a predator that was before him. It was clearly David's golden opportunity, but he had to push through the fear. Everyone else was afraid of Goliath. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 24 says, and all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, Goliath, they fled from him and were what? Dreadfully afraid. There's fear, then there's being dreadfully afraid. Everyone was scared out of their mind because of this predator. And this David, this writer of Psalm 23, the one who wrote the words, he makes me lie down in green pastures. When everybody else is afraid, David goes before Saul. He's a kid. Verse number 32, 1 Samuel 17, let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go out and fight with the Philistine. Now you got to chuckle a little bit. If you're an adult listening to a kid like this talk, you're like, they don't just know better. You know, kids sometimes have a bravado. They have a confidence because they don't know better. Remember when you were a kid? When I was a kid, I jumped down a whole flight of steps just for fun. I just stand up in front of them like, watch this. Right? Think nothing of it. Now when I get close to the steps, I hold on to the banister. When I was a kid, I'd hit the gas pedal on the car, see how fast the car could go, just for fun. Now I get in the car with my son. He goes over 65. I'm like, would you slow down, please? Could you imagine David? Here's this kid, right? He's like, don't worry about it. All you mighty men of war, all you great military, gurus, don't worry. I'll go out and fight him. And you remember what Saul says. Saul said, that's just laughable. Matter of fact, look at it with me. David then responds to Saul, 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 34. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep his father's sheep. And when a lion and a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it, delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard, struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both a lion and a bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them. Now, if David just stopped there, I would think Saul would be right. Just laugh at the kid. Look at this kid trying to pull up on little kiddie experiences. Little things he doesn't know no better. It's because he did this and this. All of a sudden, he's ready for that. But David doesn't stop there. David doesn't have it twisted. He's not disillusioned. He doesn't think that he was able to defeat the lion and the bear because he was that tough. And David begins to, in this very next breath to Saul, unravel what he's talking about in Psalm 23, because the very next thing he says, after he says, your servant has killed both a lion and a bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defied the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, the Lord, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. What gave David such confidence against the predators and the enemies of life? David realized something that we must embrace in our lives, that when we fight, we don't fight alone. When we stand, we don't stand by ourselves. David understood that it wasn't him who shot the slingshot, that it was the great shepherd. David understood something that Goliath couldn't even see. Goliath thought he was fighting one shepherd, but he was fighting two shepherds, one that was a shepherd kid and the other that was a shepherd king. He was fighting two. And we must realize, if we are ever going to get rest against the predators of life, that the presence of God is with us.
Is your life going in the direction that you want it to? For your career, for your finances, and for your relationships? Did you know that the thoughts you think influence your direction more than anything else? That is why your mind is being targeted by the enemy. Pastor Frank Santora sounds the alarm in an effort to help you stay woke to the strategies the enemy uses to keep you from renewing your mind. Using recent discoveries in epigenetics and solid biblical teaching, he reveals how you can change the course of your life by changing your mind in his latest ebook, Stay Woke, The Keto Diet for Your Mind. In it, he will show you where your spiritual diet may have gone off track and show you how to feed your mind the right diet in order to enjoy spiritual fitness. Just visit www.franksantora.cc to download your free copy today and prepare to be changed. This is not a diet book, rather a guide to total life change by getting your thinking on track.
Do you know what? We have the same promise. God didn't just promise David he'll be with him, and Moses he'll be with him, and Joshua he'll be with him. He promised us that he would be with us. Matthew chapter 28, verse number 18. Jesus came to them and he spoke to them, saying, all authority has been given me in heaven and earth. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. Now just let me stop there for a moment. I want to just make sure I say this accurately. But maybe part of the reason why we don't experience the presence of God, part of the reason why we aren't cognizant of the presence of God, is because we really aren't about the Great Commission. Maybe we're wanting God's presence over everything that we decide to do that has nothing to do with what God has asked us to do. Because God said, if you do this, and lo, I'm with you even until the end of the age. Can I tell you why it's important to put God's business above every other business? Is because when you put God's business first, you understand the presence of God is with you, and then God's presence will go with you into the things that God will bless in your own life that don't have anything to do with the Great Commission. God's presence is with us, though. It's a promise not just to Moses or David. Remember, sheep, they need the presence of the shepherd in order to feel safe from their enemies. It's like the famous poem, you know it. One night I had a dream. I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me, the other to the Lord. After the last scene, my life flashed before me. I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that many times along the path of life, especially at the very lowest and saddest times, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me. So I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said that if I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troubling times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why. When I needed you the most, that you would leave me. He whispered, my precious child, I love you. I'll never leave you. Never, ever during your trials and your testings. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. His presence is always with us. We shall not fear, because his presence is near. We shall not fear, because he walks with us and talks with us and leads us in the way. He makes us lie down. It's not that our life is exempt from predators, but he makes us lie down because we have confidence in the care of the shepherd. First key, I must realize God's presence is with us. Second thing about God's presence is blessed rest comes when you prioritize his presence. One of the Big Ten, 10 Commandments, is overlooked in our lives more than any of the other ones. Honor the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Most of us, we even forget about this one, that it even exists. Everybody knows the big ones, you know. Do not steal, do not murder, do not commit adultery. It's amazing how the church gets focused on certain things that are in the same list as things that we choose to ignore, like keep the Sabbath day holy. But God thought it was pretty important because he put it in his top 10. Matter of fact, some scholars believe that when God gave the 10 commandments, he gave them in order of priority, which means that keeping the Sabbath day is more important, if it's true, than not murdering, not stealing, or not committing adultery. Some also believe by virtue of the amount of text that he gave to keeping the Sabbath, that it is also more important. Because when it comes to, for instance, murder, he just says 4 words. You shall not murder. Get it? God's like, good, I'm glad you got that one. When it comes to not stealing, he says you shouldn't steal. Get it? Good. When it comes to not committing adultery, he says you shouldn't commit adultery. Got that one? Good. When it comes to the Sabbath, God said, let me hit the pause and let me just explain this one to you a little bit. He says, Exodus chapter 20, verse number 8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, to set it apart, to consecrate it, to dedicate it. That's what it means to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. Some of y'all that got 2 days off a week, you're blessed. I said, some of y'all that got 2 days off a week, you are blessed. I work so hard. Not if you got 2 days off a week, you don't work that hard. Because a lot of us out here, we work 6 days a week. We got 1 day off. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work. Watch this, because God's got us covered. He says, not you, not your son or your daughter. Let me just break that down for you a minute here. That means that your kid stuff doesn't take priority on God's day. God takes priority on God's day. Woo! That is such good stuff right there. Because you should see church attendance over the summertime when kids got stuff. Well, I got to get my kids here, and I got to get my kids there, and I got to get my kids here, and it's all right. God understands that I hadn't been in church in 4 months. Who told you? Say, Pastor, but your kids played sports too. I know. We got Saturday night service. We got Wednesday night Bible study. You can get to church. If you really want to, you can get to church. Not your son, not your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that's in them. And then he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Now, what does this mean? Because some people think that what this means is that on the Lord's day, that I got to get my flip-flops and my shorts on and a glass of iced tea and sit in my lawn chair and not move. That kind of rest will do your body good, but it won't do your soul good. To some extent, it won't. God's really not talking about just shutting it down to get some physical rest, although that is absolutely essential and important. He said the Sabbath is holy to the Lord. In other words, it's God's day. It is the day where we drop everything and we prioritize being in the presence of Almighty God. Because when we're in the presence of God, suddenly we realize how powerful the presence of God is. Suddenly we realize what beauty is in the presence of God, what calm is in the presence of God, what peace is in the presence of God, how everything all of a sudden gets fixed and prioritized in the presence of God. And maybe the reason why a lot of people aren't at rest is because the presence of God in the house of God is not a priority.
The Lord is my shepherd. Simple words, but they have so much power. The Lord is the one who is looking out for you, guiding you, and caring for you. And like a shepherd, he's watching over you, ordering your steps, and binding up your wounds. If you need to be reminded about how great our Lord is and can use some reassurance during some difficult times, you want to get my latest resource in your hands. Here's my announcer to tell you how to get it. I want to share something with you that I believe will take your quiet time with God to a new level. I've had dark times in my life where I've been betrayed and fell into despair. And during one of those times I was praying and I was struggling with my feelings and my faith, and they were all mixed together with fear and all sorts of other emotions. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was given songs in the night that I just scribbled down to encourage myself of God's goodness, of His faithfulness, of His ability to turn things around no matter what it looked like at the time. These were just my heart cries, like those of the psalmist David from long ago. And I shared them with one of my friends and songwriter. He was so encouraged by them that I decided that I needed to share them with you. I compiled them into a devotional volume that I'm calling Modern Day Psalms, Poetry for the Soul. This isn't meant to be one of those books that you pick up and read straight through. Rather, it's meant to be a devotional aid read one day at a time, little bit each day. It's now available online at franksantora.cc. It's a beautiful hard copy. It's got the gold letters on it and it's beautifully bound. It's got this little bookmark on the inside. I believe this book will bless you, will help you in your journey of faith with the one who listens, loves, and strengthens you to overcome any challenge in your life. And it's only $15, a small cost to make a difference, a big difference in your life. Go ahead and get it. franksantora.cc. I can't say enough about this psalm, and we've barely scratched the surface. I hope you'll join me in the coming weeks as I unpack more from the greatest psalm, that is Psalm 23. I'm Pastor Frank Santora, reminding you that with Jesus, you're destined to win.
Spirit of God, have your way. Sweep across this room and move in miraculous ways. Manifest your glory. Spirit of God, have your way. Sweep across this room and move in miraculous ways. Manifest your glory now. Manifest your glory now. 'Cause where you are, the heavens and the earth are shaking.
If you're in the New York City or Connecticut area, we invite you to visit us at one of our locations or join us online every Sunday at faithchurch.cc/live. On behalf of Pastor Frank and from all of us at Faith Church, God bless you, we love you, and we'll see you next week.